Today we'll be transforming this beautiful vintage Hoffman image straight razor, taking it from the typical neglected condition you see here and turning it into a nice looking shave ready razor. The razor shows the usual surface rust, decades of built up crud, and as is usual with this type of flea market find, an extremely dull blade with really no cutting edge left at all. First off, we're going to spray the razor with plenty of Lysol or a similar disinfecting spray. We'll let the Lysol sit on there for 4 or 5 minutes before wiping it off. This disinfects the razor and takes off the first layer of filth. While the scales are still wet with Lysol, I roll up an end of a paper towel to clean between the scales. This might take a while and a few paper towels. Now it's time for some metal polish. I use Moss. Moss is a cream polish that works well for removing surface rust and tarnish. Whoa, that's way too much. Try and apply the Moss sparingly. You'll most likely have to apply some, rub until your paper towel is black with tarnish and rust, and then reapply and have another go at it. Just keep this up until you're not seeing any more rust or tarnish. Then wipe the blade clean with a fresh paper towel. You can see here how effective the Moss is. This could take some time depending on the condition of the razor, but with a little elbow grease, you'll get there in the end. And here we have the razor after cleaning, looking much better, but still dull and certainly not shave ready. You can still see some nicks and deep scratches on the top of the blade here, which we'll take care of with the honing. Okay, time for honing. Step 1, we take out the Norton 1000 grit whetstone. The Norton is a man-made whetstone and needs to be soaked 10 or 15 minutes before use. The Norton 1000 grit is all about re-establishing a good bevel and once again getting an edge on the blade. I usually start out with 50 strokes on one side of the blade, flip the blade for another 50, flip the blade for 40 strokes, and so on until I get down to a few individual X strokes. Then, to see if I've managed to establish some kind of edge on the blade, I test to see if it'll cut some hairs on my forearm. At this point, it doesn't have to shave well, but as long as it's taking off a few hairs, I know I'm on the right track. After the Norton, I always like to take a look at the edge with a loupe just to make sure nothing funky is happening with the bevel. Now it's time for the Codicle. To begin with, I'll take a small piece of Codicle, called a slurry stone, and rub it on the wet larger Codicle, creating what's called a slurry. Garnets are released into the slurry, giving the stone an approximate grit of 6,000, which is a good place to start after the Norton. I'll do 15 strokes on each side of the blade, drop 1 drop of water onto the stone, do another 15 strokes on each side, drop another drop of water, and so on, gradually diluting the slurry and bringing the approximate grit slowly up to around 8,000 grit. I'll do the add a drop of water thing maybe 20 times, then rinse the stone and do a few sets of 15 strokes on nothing but clean water, working down to 10 strokes on each side, then 5, and eventually down to maybe 20 individual X strokes. Now it's time for the stropping. Normally on a razor that I've just refurbished, I'll do 100 strokes on a nice Irish linen strop, then I'll move to my shell strop and do another 100 strokes on that. And here we have the finished razor. It certainly is beautiful and appears to be shave ready, but the only way to know for sure is to actually try and shave with it. And time for the moment of truth, the straight razor shave. First I'll lather up my face with a nice shaving soap, and then have at it. While I'm shaving, let me talk here a bit about razor restoration. When I use the term restoration, I'm referring to what I basically did in this video, which is cleaning up a razor, getting it nice looking and shave ready so it can be added to a razor rotation. Now there are some folks that do much more extensive restorations on razors, removing the pins and scales, basically breaking the entire razor down to its component parts so they can clean and restore every inch of the razor to a like new condition, often even replacing the original scales. I never go to these extremes. I like to keep everything as original as possible, and as long as a razor is a nice looking, good shaver, I'm plenty happy. You might be saying, how much is all this going to cost me? Well, the Moss is around $12, the Norton 1000 is around $50, and you can find a decent sized Codicle with slurry stone for around $100. Sure, it's a little expensive, but when you consider what you might be spending on disposable plastic razors, in the long run, restoring and using a vintage straight razor would most likely wind up saving you money. And of course, you can't put a price on the chance to experience a bit of shaving history. So get out there and start hunting those garage sales, flea markets, and antique shops for those beautiful, forgotten straight razors just waiting to be put back into use.